Hello, and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Live. I'm SME Media Senior Editor Michael McConnell. For some manufacturing companies, social media is still a mystery. It's something that kids do, or bigger companies with a marketing budget, a marketing department can dedicate time and resources to. But Ian Johnson, the owner of marketing agency Digital Lug and the host of Discovery's Build for Off-Road, wants you to think differently about social media marketing. Most importantly, it's not something that you can afford to ignore. Ian gave a presentation on social media marketing for manufacturers at FabTech Canada and how it can help grow their businesses. Today, we're going to explore how social media has helped grow Ian's business and profile. Ian, welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Live.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
We met at FabTech Canada in Toronto, and it's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's always good to be back south of the border, back doing what I do, but it's all good. Yeah, it was a fun time up in Canada. I got my fill of poutine and everything was good.
Awesome. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a television show host. Content creator is the new term that we like to use for ourselves, but I basically make cool content about trucks and all kinds of fun stuff. And but I also own the company that does it. So unlike a lot of DIY television show hosts, I actually own the production company that makes all my shows, and we produce shows for a lot of different places. We do YouTube stuff, we do stuff for traditional linear television streaming, we do stuff for actual streaming companies, we produce shows that I'm on, we produce shows that I'm not on, and then we also work with a lot of companies and individuals to help them basically create social media strategies to essentially, at the end of the day, my job is to help sell auto parts and sell welders. So I got to, help companies position their product in a way that helps people sell them, helps promote them, and basically closes that loop from the end user customer. I just get to do it in a really cool, fun way.
When I shot a video interview with you up in Toronto, you had an interesting journey from mechanics to teaching to a lot of different things before you landed in television and then at digital marketing. Could you go over some of that?
Yeah, so I started my life as an auto mechanic. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to work on cars all day, and so I thought that was the best way to do that, and so that's what I did. I, signed my apprenticeship papers like all tradespeople in Canada do. It's an apprenticeship system, so I signed my apprenticeship papers when I was just finishing up high school, finished up my trade, wrote my back then it was called a mechanic. I think when I wrote it, they changed the name of it. Originally, it was called a mechanic's license, and it became an automotive service technician license, I think is what it's called. Now it's got a whole new name. But I have an automotive service technician in light car and heavy truck and coach. So I was working as a mechanic for many years, probably about 6 or 7, and then I took I wanted my summers off is what I really wanted, to be honest with you. And okay. My parents were teachers, and I knew that they didn't work in the summer. And I asked them if I could be how to become a shop teacher, and I lucked out. Honestly, there was just a shortage of shop teachers at the time, so I was able to apply to teachers college, go back to teachers college, get my teaching degree, and then I started teaching high school. Did that for about 7-8 years, and then I ended up applying for a job to be on television. I did a TV show called Monster Garage down in Long Beach, California, and once I did that show, I was kind of sucked into doing TV, and I was like, man, that was kind of fun. And I sort of explored that some more and ended up applying to be on another television show, and then I got that job. And so then I created a show for Spike TV called Extreme 4x4, and I lucked out because I worked for a very, very good production company where the owner was very open and honest about everything. And so I learned everything there was to know about producing a television show from him. That was Joe St. Lawrence. He's sort of one of the godfathers of automotive DIY television. But probably about 10 years in, I started to realize, we started to look and we'd see a sort of a shift. A lot of our clients, because we were dealing directly with companies that wanted to be on the show with their parts and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we saw a change in where they were basically allocating their budget money. Instead of putting all their money towards traditional television or print media, they were starting to carve off portions of their budget for social media, and more importantly, social media content creation is what they were doing. And so once we did that, then I realized, hey, there's a niche in this market where we don't have anyone basically servicing that industry, and especially in our space. So we had production companies over here, and then we had, there was some fledgling social media agencies, but a lot of them wanted to deal with, Fortune 500 companies. They didn't want to just deal with the smaller companies of the world, especially in the automotive and the welding and cutting space. So I decided it was time to sort of branch off and just sort of do our own thing. And so we started as just a traditional social media agency, started doing some content creation for different companies. And with that, the business just expanded after that. And then it just became a full service production company, television studio, as well as social media agency for a lot of different people.
Were you targeting manufacturers at that time for your clients?
Absolutely. All of our clients are in the automotive space, automotive parts manufacturers and or welding companies. We dealt with everything from large to small. In the off-road space, we're dealing with companies that really there's two people running it. It's a small company. It's two brothers or two buddies, and they started a company to build off-road parts. And then it just sort of grew and grew and grew, and we helped them promote it and help them grow it into a larger company. We're also dealing with companies that are part of giant private equity firms that have 70 brands underneath their umbrella, and we're helping them augment their current social media push through both streaming services and just standard traditional television. And then we're also dealing with big manufacturers, Fortune 5, Fortune 500 companies that are they have huge budgets and they just don't know where to go, and they try these blanket approaches to everything, and it just doesn't work for them. And so they come to us for a more targeted approach to basically promote their product or their service, and that's what we specialize in.
Are you amazed that it's kind of grown that much, that it's grown into such a large thing?
Not really, because we kind of saw
Oh.
it coming. The nice thing is
Oh,
that
okay.
all you got to do is look around. You can see it coming elsewhere, right? So we
Yeah.
saw the death of the magazine industry when social media started early. So at the time, I actually owned a print magazine and I'd sold it out, and we saw it coming. We all sat around and talked about it. And we're like, oh, look at this thing called Facebook. Surely it's not going to be the end of all of these print magazines. Like, surely we're still going to have 27 titles being made in the automotive space. And we saw it slowly chip away at it and become one title, and there's still space in there for that traditional media. What I tell everyone is there's the difference is now is there's not fewer people and there's not fewer eyeballs. You just have to have a more planned approach as to how to get to all of them. We used to be very easy. You run an ad in a magazine and you knew how everyone who's interested in that particular car would buy that magazine. And that was a very easy route to go. Well, now those people are still out there. There's probably actually more of them. But now you have to think and you have to say, okay, well, some of them are still buying a magazine for that industry. Some of them are taking part in Reddit threads. Some of them are taking part in Facebook groups. Some of them are only following Instagram pages. And so you need to go in, and some of them are watching YouTube videos. And so you need to go in and look at a targeted approach across all of those items to look at how you're going to get to those people. And so we saw it coming because we just saw it happening in general. We saw more people watching the TV show, interacting with forums, and then we saw them Facebook groups starting up and the growth of Facebook groups, and then Instagram pushing it after that. So it all was happening. People say slowly, but really it happened in a matter of 2-3 years, and it all changed. And it's all still there. Like I said, it's just now it's much more segmented across everywhere you look.
I should note that we still produce a print magazine at SME Media.
Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. There's still 2 or 3 very successful magazines in the automotive space that still do very, very well. The people who suffered, the reality was the companies that suffered in that space were companies that did not adapt. So the big one at the time was Peterson's Publishing. They had 85 different titles because they just basically kept making different magazines to service the audience. So they had a Mustang magazine, and then they had a F100 Ford magazine, and then they had Carcraft and Hot Rod and Street Rodder and Low Rider. And the reality is if they had started to collapse all of that into one really, really, really good magazine that serviced, a core part of that industry, they probably would have been fine. But when you segment everything out, but you're still delivering it the same way, it just doesn't work. And then they didn't take advantage early on of new media opportunities, right? Like the reality is what happens in a lot of spaces, people get stuck there. They're like, well, and I saw it. The production company that I worked for at the time before I left, all they wanted to talk about was making TV shows. You couldn't talk to them about anything else. Social media, YouTube, streaming, the conversation just fell on deaf ears. It was like, nope, we are a production company. We make television shows for television networks. That's what we do. And sure enough, they're gone now too, because they didn't look and say, all right, where are these you just got to chase the eyeballs. You just got to figure out where are people going. And the reality is that it's your job in marketing to find those people. That's what you have to do. That's your main goal. Sorry about my dog barking. Delivering.
He's just one of our guests. It's okay.
That's right. She's just a cute dog, but she's a good doorbell. Sorry about that.
She's walked behind you a couple times, so I did notice her. At FabTech Canada, during your keynote speech presentation, you had said manufacturing was a little behind other industries in getting involved in content creation and social media. Why is that?
I don't think it's a choice. I think it's just the nature of the beast. I think it's just the reality of the industry itself. Is if you look at the heavy hitters or the big players in that space, if you look at the big companies that are they have the money to take the risks to try new things, and if 9 of them don't work and 1 does, that's great. The reality is in the manufacturing space or even just the automotive space, most people don't have that kind of budget to say, all right, I'm going to take my marketing budget and I'm going to take $1 million and I'm going to spend $100,000 on 10 different things and hopefully one of them works. That they just don't have that opportunity. And I think that's the biggest issue, I think. And that's also, I think a lot of the times, especially in I don't want to call it old industries, but the reality is we are an older industry. We still have an old school version of looking at marketing. And that version is there's a difference between marketing and advertising and promotion and education. There are all these things. And I have these conversations with a lot of companies about what each one of those things does, and how it helps the business grow. And the reality is each one does a different thing. And you can't just say, well, I'm going to spend $100 on marketing, so I'd better sell $1,000 worth of product. That's not marketing. That's advertising. That's different. That's a completely different thing. And I think that's the hardest part to sort of break through to people to say, hey, you need to think about it differently and plan it differently. And that way you'll have a successful strategy in the end.
So you talked a little bit about this at FabTech Canada as well, but what are the platforms that manufacturers, especially smaller shops, that if they're just getting started, even though it's 2026, there's a lot of people out there that really haven't gotten into this yet. Where should they be starting? What should they be looking at?
So it all depends on what your end goal is. I think a lot of people look at, quote, social media and they just throw a blanket over all of it, right? So they'll say, well, I'm going to do Facebook, I'm going to do YouTube, I'm going to do this. The reality is every single one of those things is different. And so you need to sit down, if we use a small shop as an example. So if a small shop came to me and said, I need to use I need to use social media. How can I use social media? And the reality is, if it's a super small shop, you want to start small and target small. So I would say we'll start with Facebook. Facebook is literally has replaced the classified ad section and the Craigslists of the world and the Yellow Pages. And that's how you should look at Facebook. If you're a small business, you should say, okay, Facebook is going to be how I'm going to talk to my customer. That's where I'm going to, maybe if I'm going to do a special, if I'm a welding supply company, I'm small, maybe that's where you advertise sales on items. If you are a small manufacturing company, that would be where you would advertise what you do. So you would take advantage of what Facebook is really, really good at, which is finding your customer. Facebook knows more about everyone who's around you than you do. Trust me, they know everything about everything. So if you're looking for a specific customer, if you are a very specialized shop and you say, hey, I want to talk to people who are looking for welding, maybe I have a press brake that's sitting still and I want to get more hours on it. Well, Facebook, you can use the targeted advertising inside Facebook to find other people in the area that Facebook will know if someone's gone onto Facebook and searched for press brake in my area to have something done, and they will help you find them. Trust me, they'll easily get in there and find those people for you. So that's the first step is understanding what it's going to do. So super small, like small mom and pop stuff, you should always start right at the beginning. Start at Facebook, start at the bottom, and that's where you should go from there.
And there are people out there that are looking for on Facebook for press brake information, for press brake shops.
I got to tell you right now, there's people on Facebook looking for everything. And the beauty, the one good thing about the internet, we'll say, or everything, and if you don't believe that it's tracking everything you do, it is. And so if you're a company, it's your job to take advantage of that. So if someone goes on to if they go onto Google and they search for a specific process or operation that's getting done or where it's going to be done, the tracking software that's in the background of any good search engine, specifically Google, which would be the best one, it's going to know that they've done that. There's a reason why when you go on the internet and look for a new lawnmower, that for some reason for the next 6 months when you're on YouTube, you are fed a lot of lawnmower advertising. There's a reason that happens. So they're in the background of all those platforms. You have access to that as a paid advertiser. So if you go into Meta Business Services or Google AdWords, or AdSense and AdWords, you can go in there, and if you don't know how to do it, you can easily find someone who can. We do it for people all the time, where we'd go in and we'd say, hey, we will find those people for you, and we will put your product in front of those people because they're out there. And like I said before, it's easy to find them. You just have to use the back end part of that software to take advantage of it.
I want to take a moment to let our viewers know that Ian has agreed to answer some questions. If you have any thing regarding social media marketing that you'd like Ian to answer, you can drop us a note in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer that at the end of the interview.
I think I got to step away just for a quick second here. I got to answer the door. Hold on.
Okay. So as I was saying, Ian is when after he gets a situation with his dog and his delivery, he's going to be answering some questions for us. That'll be great. So please let us know. Drop those in the chat.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. That's the fun of live streaming, right?
I've been waiting for that product. I'm getting my waste oil service, and of course, it had to be today, right in the middle of a live stream, that they decided to come.
So when you're talking to these small shops, and are you discussing content with them? Are they looking for content, or should these small shops starting to go down the social media path, a marketing path with social media? Should they be thinking about content at this stage?
You should always think about content. The reality is your social media pages and everything. That's that back in the 80s, if you started a business, the first thing they taught you in business, right, was own your building. If you're a company that rents a building, your goal as a business is to one day own your building. Well, you should think of all of your digital footprints as that. You should own the content that you create for all of your social media platforms. So, and then how you're going to use it. So if we use a small business as an example, I think I used this example up in Canada. So if we're talking about if you're a shop and you specialize in one thing, let's say you're the only shop in a 500-mile radius that can repair magnesium. So, and you want people to know that, you then go out and you would then plan a social media strategy around that part of your business. So maybe you would say, okay, well, we're going to create some content for YouTube that's very specific to YouTube. So YouTube it's the largest second largest search engine in the world that's owned by the first largest search engine. So when someone goes into Google and types in how to get my magnesium, whatever it is, repaired in your area, you're probably going to come up on the feed, especially if you have made a video for YouTube that says, this is how we repair magnesium in our shop. And if you've made a video for that, then that's going to end up being inside that Google search ranking. And if you make a video about it, that'll be discoverable by the people. If you put money behind it and use that for advertising inside Google Ads, then that's even more. You're going to get more people in your area because you can do targeted advertising around that, specifically around the YouTube video. You could if you built the nice thing about YouTube is anything can be an ad. So if you have a video that you've created that is about a specific service that you offer, you could then go in on the back end of YouTube and you can put a certain amount of money behind that and say, hey, anytime someone searches how to fix XYZ, I want my video to be at the top of their list. And it can do that. You just got to pay for it. So then you'd look at, so that's going to be your education piece, what you're going to do. Then you're going to come and you're going to once again use Facebook for your targeted advertising. You're going to take advantage of Facebook Marketplace and some other basically Facebook groups in your area. If you're fixing, like I said, fixing magnesium, and that's a very specific product that is made out of magnesium that you're fixing, there's probably going to be a Facebook group out there of someone who owns that product. So you need to be inside that group promoting that you do that repair. And that, think of Facebook as like, that's your first point of contact to the customer. YouTube's running over here. It's almost like an advertisement. Just leave it alone. But Facebook is where you're actually going to talk to that customer. And then Instagram is where you're just going to basically be creating content that people can discover on mobile. That's still your pretty place, your pretty pictures, your fun stuff. That's where it lands on Instagram. It's a better spot for it. And so with that sort of like three-legged stool of an attack, a small shop can look at it and say, okay, so now I can make content around all three of those things, and I can use that to eventually drive people through the door of my business to help with my magnesium repair portion of my business. And that's just how you have to look at it. You have to look at every single part individually and a plan for each one.
I think that probably sounds intimidating to some small shops, at least.
It is, but the reality of it is this. So this bad boy, right? It used to cost us $1 million worth of video equipment to make a television show. That's what it cost us. So when we switched over from, I started in television when we were still shooting in standard def. When we switched over to high def, it cost us $1 million. The production company had to spend $1 million on camera and equipment. When we switched over to 4K, it was another $1 million. The reality is now all of that is in this bad boy right here. It sits in your phone. So you have a video and a photograph machine right here, a video camera and a camera that's part of your phone that is easy to capture that content. And then it's just a matter of organizing it and putting it out in the right manner to basically capture that customer or end user so they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Have you done a lot of how-to content? I know that's usually does very well.
That's 90% of what we do. Majority of our stuff is how-to. If I'm starting with a part manufacturer, if we're sitting down and we talk to them and they say, hey, we want to create content, but we don't know what to do. I say, all right, well, give me your YouTube. Give me your YouTube channel. Let's start there. And 9 times out of 10, they don't have one. So
Sure.
And then we start on their YouTube channel and I say, okay, now give me a list of what, when you sell something to somebody, what's the number one customer call that you get? What's the first thing that people call you about? And that's your first YouTube video right there, 100%. Because number one, obviously, if you're selling something and that's the number one call you get, people are having difficulty using whatever it is you're selling them. And so you need to alleviate that problem. And then secondly, when someone does call and say, hey, I'm having a problem doing whatever it is that you've sold them, you simply say, oh, just go to our YouTube channel. There's an entire video on how to fix that problem, or an entire video on how to use that product. And that's your first video. Then we go in and we say, all right, let's give me all of your install instructions that you send out with all of the products that you sell. That's the second set of videos that we make. And so we usually go through, and then after that, 9 times out of 10, we go on their website. There's always an FAQ, like frequently asked questions about our product or service, whatever. There's 10 of them. That's your next 10 videos. That's all we do. And that's your first video strategy, because I think sometimes people think, they just think, well, YouTube is, that's where Mr. Beast is, and that's where all these companies. But that's not, which is what it is. It is an entertaining platform, which is what it does. But as I said before, it's the second largest search engine. So somebody is on there searching how to use your product. So why not have your video be there for them to watch?
Well, that kind of leads into my next point. You mentioned Mr. Beast or what have you. Should these shops start thinking of themselves as influencers?
No.
No?
I mean, you can, but
okay. So you're not saying do that.
No, I think
okay.
If you're that's a totally different conversation. So that's a conversation that we would have once you have an established brand. So that's an entire conversation about brand building, not using social media. That's the difference between marketing and advertising. So if you're a small shop, you really should be focusing on your core product that you're trying to sell. What makes you money, and how can you use social media to grow that part of your business? When that part of your business is so big that you don't have to worry about the bills anymore, great. You can then start looking at brand or basically brand recognition. But the reality is brand recognition, that's for companies like Red Bull, and Holly and Magnaflow. We're talking about big businesses where the person who's making these decisions is not worried about whether or not they sell enough mufflers today to pay rent. They're worried about making t-shirts. And that's my biggest fear, and we see it quite often in any space where we'll start working with a company, and the reality is sometimes the companies are right at that edge where they're big enough that they want to start having a brand conversation, but they don't realize that the brand conversation, although it's great to have, and if you have a brand that you want to grow, that's awesome. But if building the brand starts costing you money, then you're basically almost just chasing a pipe dream at that point. You're like, you want to be Coca-Cola when you're not Coca-Cola yet. Then that could be a very dangerous place to be, because the reality is brand building, which is great, only works for some people. It works for manufacturers. The reality is brand building is very important in our space for 3 different companies that are known by 3 different colors. That's who we worry about, right? That's who worries about brand building. The small mom and pop shop that is building barbecues, that they don't need to worry about brand building. They just got to build a really, really good barbecue. That's their first step.
What do you do? I'm sure clients you work with. Have you ever clients, they struggle, they make some content, they think it's pretty good content, and maybe it is, but they struggle to get views? I mean, I'm sure that's an issue, isn't it?
It is, and that's where I often have very, very long conversations about something called the term in the industry is called vanity metrics. And the reality is you can't get stuck on vanity metrics. And so not the problem, but the conversation that we have with people is, if that's your KPI is views, unless KPI matters for views. If you're someone like me who's making entertaining stuff, or someone like Mr. Beast, that's what they're worried about. They're worried about views. Your job in manufacturing, or at least in our industry, is to sell something. That's the end of the day. So if you reach 10,000 people, that's great. If 1% of those buy your product, that's awesome. If you only measure your success by getting 1 million views, well, that doesn't mean, what if 1 million people watched it but nobody bought anything? That's not a success. That's you got 1 million views but you sold nothing. Yeah. That's to me, I'd rather have 10,000 views where I sell 1,000 items. That's a better metric. So we spend a lot of time talking about what the actual key performance indicator is going to be of a successful social media campaign. And 9 times out of 10, it always boils down to, it's usually, I want to sell more of X. And for that, views don't really matter. You want to focus more on using the platform to reach whoever you're trying to reach in a successful way that's going to help you sell more product or sell more of a service, and not get sucked into, I got 1 million views. Because we have had clients that they push hard on that. I can get you 1 million views tomorrow. It's not a problem. It's all bought. It can all be bought on the internet. I can go and I can buy you 1 million views on Instagram. I can buy you 1 million views on Facebook. I can buy you 1 million views on YouTube. But it doesn't mean it's going to sell you more parts or more product. It's not going to do that. But if it will get you that number, if that's what you want, you can get there all day long.
What about companies that say they're just too busy to worry about these kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. The reality is that's easy to say. I think the reason that I think people feel too busy to do this is because they look at it and they sort of say, I'm too busy to do this. But they weren't too busy to, buy a magazine ad or buy a Yellow Pages directory, or because it was easier. That's the reality. It is harder. It is more work. And it's why there's people who do it professionally. That's the reality. I would say if you're a company and you're too busy to do this, then your first step is to find somebody to do it for you and start there, because you don't have to hire a full-time person to do it. You can hire just a contracted individual to come in, take care of your social media. The nice thing is because there's so much back-end software that can make it easier for them to manage, that it's not crazy expensive. You can spend a lot of money doing it depending on what your end goal is. But if you're just wanting your first, dip your toe into social media, you can get in there and just basically get a contractor and sort of help you out. And that's that's the first step for a lot of people, because like I said, it's hard to justify a full-time employee
Sure.
just to run your social media account unless you're seeing a lot of return on it.
Is that comment, I'm too busy, is that becoming less common if people realize that they can't just dismiss it like they used to, maybe they did 10 years ago or longer?
I think, yeah, I think it's less common because I think people have realized that it's just more commonplace. Like you said in the
Yeah.
beginning, I think a lot of people, 10 years ago, people were like, social media, that's just what kids do. Well, now
Yeah.
the reality is everyone who's in these decision making basically seats in companies, they have been on social media, or they got their job through LinkedIn, or they understand the benefits of it, and so now they just got to figure out how to allocate the time and the resources to make it work for them. And that's where a lot of them hit a wall and just sort of like, well, I don't even know where to start because I don't even know what to do.
Well, you talk about how much time it takes. I mean, I'm sure that there are some shop owners who will struggle to see the value when they think about how much time they have to put into this. So what do you say to them?
I say just start with baby steps, and also more importantly, it's just like we said before. You have to first decide what you want to do. So if the reason I think people get frustrated with it is because they go in just with like, all right, well, I'm going to do social media. So I've started an Instagram page, I've started a Facebook page, I started a YouTube channel, and I have no idea what I'm going to put. I'm just going to put random things on it and hope to see what happens. And that, I think, is where people make a mistake, is because they don't say, all right, this is actually going to be my end goal for what this is going to be, and this is how I plan to get there. So I think that's where people get based the fatigue of trying to keep up with social media, because they just get sucked into that. Well, I have to do it, so I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to go in it without a plan and just sort of see what happens. And the reality is it's just haphazard. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't call 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't call up a newspaper and be like, run an ad for my welding shop. I don't care what it says. Just put whatever you think is right in there and just make it look cool. You'd spend time on it, and you'd think about it. And I think that's more where people get fatigued or worn out, is because they don't see a return on it right away, because they don't go into it with a basically a structured plan. And it doesn't have to be that structured. You just have to know what you want out of the back end of it.
It's kind of a long game, though. They can't expect immediate results.
It depends. You can get quick results if you are, let's say you're a mobile welder, right? Mobile welder is super easy. Bing, bang, boom, right away. Facebook Marketplace. There you go. You're done. If you put a little bit of money into a Facebook Marketplace campaign in your area, your truck will never turn off, because that's what's going to happen. That's just going to grow that business. So you can get a quick return on the advertising portion of social media. If you're looking to build your brand of social media, that's a longer term game. That's a long game that you got to look at and say, my goal is to have XYZ. We have customers, we've helped them, that they've come as they said, we used to be a cool brand and we've stopped, and we want to be a cool brand again. How do we become the cool brand that people think are cool again? And we'll say, yeah, we'll spend a year to 2 years with a campaign on them, helping them basically turn that ship, because that's just what you have to do. I mean, it takes a year to sort of figure that out.
Want to take another moment to remind our viewers that if you would like to ask Ian a question, please post it in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to that. Ian, let's talk for a few minutes about your agency. How did you come up with the name Digital Lug?
So it's funny, when we started the business, there's always you spend a lot of time trying to figure out cool business names, right? And I didn't. It's a Canadian thing that you always sort of name your business whatever your name is. It's like Johnson Media. That's always what I want to do. I tried to. I don't know if you remember this, but when I was a teenager, the hot T-shirt to have was the Big Johnson T-shirts, and I tried to and I thought for sure that trademark had expired. And I'm like, oh, we're gonna cop. It's gonna be Big Johnson. That we're gonna do all the T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. But believe it or not, that's still an active trademark. T-shirts, so we couldn't have. So then you just honestly, when we started searching for company names, because we actually, believe it or not, we do this with some of our clients, so help them name product and all that kind of stuff. But so it sounds silly, but we'll start with just looking for cool term. It's easier now with Chat GPT, but you used to have to research it all. Yeah. So you'd research things, and I had a great name that I thought was cool, because I start with Viking terms, then I'll go into pirate terminology, then I'll go into something. And so we were in pirate terms, and I thought I had a great name for the company called Freebooter Media. Now, a freebooting pirate was a pirate that was like almost like a privateer. Like you were a pirate,
Okay.
but you didn't have a captain. You could just do whatever you want. You could just jump from ship to ship to ship. I thought it was kind of cool. But the problem is, because then once you come up with a cool name, then you got to go into the actual, all the urban dictionaries and the dictionaries and the dark corners of the internet to find out exactly what it means. And a freebooter in the digital world is someone who steals content and reposts it for their own use. So we couldn't name our marketing agency that.
No.
So then we came up with lug is actually Gaelic for ear. And so that's where digital lug, and I thought it was kind of cool because it's lug nuts, cars, digital, it all worked out. So yeah, we went with digital lug. So that's what we stuck it with.
It's a great story. And you think you mentioned this before, but what's the percentage of your clients that are involved to some facet of the manufacturing space?
Probably, well, I would say manufacturing space is probably going to be 80%. The majority of our clients are in the automotive space, and a lot of them in that area. But the most of our clients in that space are manufacturing products of themselves. So we are one of them. And then, so I'd probably say it's that. Now, straight welding, cutting, manufacturing companies in that world, we deal with probably 10% of our clients in that space for sure. But for actual manufacturers, I'd say that's the majority of our business.
Okay. If someone is just watching this, is just getting started, they've been thinking about this a little bit, but now they're thinking after watching this for a while that maybe they're going to do something. What should they do? You mentioned Facebook, but what should they start with?
So it's like I said, it's going to depend on what they're doing. So if we'll take 3 case scenarios. So if I'm a small mom and pop shop, I'm just a local manufacturing company that maybe my circle of work is like maybe 150 miles for whatever I'm going to be doing. And you don't want to get bigger than that. You just want to stay inside that 150 mile radius. Then you're going to stick to your very focused target area. So you're probably going to spend a lot of time living on Facebook. That's going to be your majority of your basically reach inside that space. So you'd start there, and you would really spend time understanding or having someone understand how targeted advertising on Facebook works. So that would be your first case scenario. So now let's go to a next case scenario. Maybe you are a welding manufacturing company, and maybe you're not necessarily global, but maybe you service a very specific industry, right? So that is going to be a little bit differently. Then you're going to look at it and say, okay, I got to look at a bunch of different platforms. So I'm going to start on Facebook, and like I said before, I'm going to start investigating Facebook groups that are involved or using a product or service that I provide. I'm going to be looking at Facebook advertising as well, targeted advertising, to get into that group, because you can do that. I'm going to create content around what my service is and what my product is. And that content will be everything from photo to video, everything. And I'm going to spend some time on Facebook, but I'm going to look at it as a larger funnel. I'm going to look at trying to get not just focused on local targeted ads. I'm looking at finding the people out there that use my products. So I'm going to be, as I said before, taking advantage of groups, chat rooms, all that kind of stuff. I'm probably also going to spend some time in Reddit, looking for subreddits inside there, because believe it or not, if there's something out there in the world that's happening, there's going to be a Reddit thread about it. So you're going to explore under Reddit, and then you're going to get in there, and you're going to try to position yourself as a subject matter expert in that space. So not necessarily advertising your service, not necessarily saying, hey, we're the shop that does X, Y, and Z. What you're looking for is you want to be the person that people start asking you questions about what it is that you do and how you do it. And that way, when they need it done, they're probably going to come to you. You're going to treat YouTube the exact same way. You're going to go into YouTube as like, okay, we're here to teach people what it is that we do. And that is where you're going to utilize some of that video asset that you create, basically showing what your company does, how you solve these problems. And you're thinking of that as in searchable terms, right? So you're thinking about, okay, when my client is looking for me, they're coming to me because we're the only place around that can create a true chrome powder coat. Well, maybe you're going to create an entire video series about how you actually create that true Chrome powder coat. And that's going to go on YouTube. And you're going to spend time on YouTube answering comments and growing that channel up to basically be the channel that people come to when they have questions about what it is that you do. Then LinkedIn is your professional door. That's where you're trying to get a hold of other companies. So you're going to post in there. You can post photos and videos, but what you do, but you're prefacing the LinkedIn stuff more as a B2B. You're looking for not necessarily trying to reach an end consumer. You're looking for another business that's trying to alleviate their problems by incorporating your services inside of it. So that's sort of that's where we'd start. You just kind of, as I said before, you got to look at each one individually as a silo and kind of go out from there. And then the last one is going to be your big brand, like we'll use my favorite one, which is ESOB Welding and Cutting, right? You're going to say, all right, so you are a man, you're trying, all your goal is very simple. Your goal is to, how do I get people to buy the yellow welder instead of the blue welder and the red welder? And in that case, then we're looking at amazing things, right? Then we're looking at, okay, now we're talking about brand engagement. We're talking about all the other things. You're already doing all that other stuff. You're advertising, you're promoting, you have subject matter experts in groups on Reddit and Facebook answering questions about filler metal. You've got all that happening. So now let's think of an idea that breaks the internet, which we hopefully have one this year at FabTech in Las Vegas. We're working on one with them right now, which will it's going to be pretty big. So, but that's what we do. We sit there and we think bigger and broader. The difference is the budget goes from, like, if the budget for the small campaign, local campaign is $1,000 a month, then the next section is going to be about $10,000 a month. And then, as you can imagine, when we move out of it, it's another 10x as we keep going out and bigger and bigger and bigger. But that's kind of how that space works out. And that's the effort and the amount of time it would take to sort of push out into all three of those spaces.
Okay. Well, let's take a couple of the questions that we got from viewers. Let me see here. This could come up. Here's one. As a manufacturer, what platforms would you recommend having a presence on?
Yeah, I think we kind of covered that a second ago, but really it depends on the size of the manufacturer you are. And then it just sort of, like we said before, it depends on what the end goal is for your company. If you're trying to grow that manufacturing company, the short answer is you should be on all of them, no matter what. What your end goal is for, let's say, even if we broke it down per month, if you said, I want, what should I be on? The answer is all of them. You should be on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Those are the ones you want to be on. And then where you focus your attention on each one would determine on what your goal is for that month. If your goal is for January is to sell more of X, then you're going to spend a lot of time with targeted advertising in December on Facebook. That's what you're going to do. And then that's just how you would sort of break that mix up.
Let's see if there's any other questions. Curious what social media tactics work best for shops with smaller budgets.
Smaller budgets, it's you start, like I said before, you'd start in the basement and work your way up. So shop with a smaller budget, I'm assuming that's a smaller shop, you're going to start targeted ads inside of that Facebook space. But the beauty of it is all the other stuff, it doesn't cost you anything. So, I mean, it doesn't cost anything to start a YouTube channel. It doesn't cost anything to start an Instagram page. It doesn't cost anything to start they're all free. It's just time. So if you are talking about an advertising budget and you're a small shop, that's where you have to look at, where do I advertise and what do I advertise? That's step one. But step two is social media tactics that work best for smaller shops. It's just finding the person inside that building that's got the time to take the cool pictures for Instagram, takes short little videos showing what's happening inside your shop, to create short videos for Instagram, TikTok. It depends on if you're trying to reach a younger demographic or not, and then just basically create the content. So the nice thing is the budget only affects it when it comes down to personnel or if you're trying to do a targeted ad spend.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. Let's see if there's any other questions here or not. Yep, here's one. Many manufacturers still see social media as optional. What do you think they're missing?
I think they're missing the fact that, number one, social media now is your first point of contact with your end consumer. So it used to be your website. It used to be Yellow Page ad or whatever however you promoted your business. The reality is most of the time someone finds your business through either a social media content or a Google search, which then leads them into a YouTube or some type of other social media hit at the beginning. So that's the first thing you need to understand is it's not optional, because the reality is that's realistically your first point of contact with the end consumer. I also think they're missing the fact that they are looking at social media marketing as advertising. And so they will simply say, well, I don't want to put any money into social media unless I sell X number of parts. And that's not social media. That's just advertising. And that's the first lesson that you need to understand is social media is not replacing advertising. It's just advertising in a different space. That's all you're doing.
Okay. Let's see if we have any more questions or not. Thanks to everyone that submitted questions. Looks like that's it.
Nope, there's one more. There we go.
One more. Okay, here we go. Are targeted ads necessary to see a bump from social media?
Absolutely not. No. If you just simply post on social, you will reach new customers, because if you weren't posting on social before or you weren't taking advantage of all the social platforms, you are just going to reach new people because they're in a different spot. Targeted ads work very well if you are trying to see a very specific return. So as I said before, if you saw a slump if you were a company that had a press break that needed to get more hours on it, and you were looking to basically increase the use of that machine, then yes, a targeted ad spend inside social media will help you find that end consumer. But if you go from zero social media interaction to any social media reaction, you're going to see a bump just in activity no matter what. Now, is it going to be 1 million people? Probably not. But the reality is, as I said before, I'd rather have 10,000. I'd rather have 1% of 10,000 actual customers than 1% of not real customers. So it's just going to be, you just got to look at who's out there and what you're trying to find, and then use social media to find them.
Okay. Well, let's see. I think that is it, Ian. I think so. Okay. Well, Ian, thank you so much. This has been great. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Ian again for being our guest today on Advanced Manufacturing Live. Please remember that SME and SME Media are here to help you stay up to date on all things manufacturing. You can link to podcasts, webinars, publications, and news by visiting us at advancedmanufacturing.org. I'm Senior Editor Michael McConnell, and I'll see you next time.